Amazingly offensive, challenging you to think offensively, challenging you to be a part of the team. This is not regular interference. This is offensive interference. With the baldest man in entertainment, me, Nick Cellini. And welcome to the family edition of Offensive Interference. I am joined by my older brother, Vince Cellini, and a lot of people think that sometimes I'm the older brother and you get a kick out of that, but I don't really enjoy it all that much, I'll be honest with you.
I really like people who believe that.
Yeah, I know you do.
I take a real liking to them.
Since I moved down here in '96, who do you think's older is the question that often...
The guy asked me just at the PGA Championship.
Yeah, I know.
Who knows us both?
Listen, I got a lot of miles on my body.
Stress is the silent killer.
Listen, my life is a country music song. You'd look old, too, if you were me. Anyway, we digress. Let's talk about the Duff, Jason Duffner, who I didn't know until you tweeted it last week. At Vince Cellini, by the way, if you want to follow him. At OI with Nick Cellini. That's the Twitter handle for offensive interference. But again, I digress. He's a Cleveland guy, is he not?
Yeah, I'm looking in the bios for a PGA Championship Media Guide, and it says he's born in Cleveland, Ohio. And I asked him about it after the second round 63, which he's putting for 62, by the way, which would have been a record major championship. No player has ever gone that low in a major in the history of the game. And he said, yeah, he said, in fact, I saw you when I was growing up there. He was a little kid. He used to watch Channel 8.
Would he slouch against the wall and watch you on television?
Yeah, we Duffnered for a while. We both sat there. But he's a remarkable story, Nick, really, when you think about it, in that this goes to show you that not everybody has a different track to success. He's took up the game at age 15, self-taught, was a walk-on at Auburn, always kind of a loner, quiet guy like he is now, and just, he's a grinder. But we can't lose sight of the fact that he's a tremendous ball striker. I mean, he hit about 75% of greens throughout the tournament, made putts when he had to make them, and went long stretches without mistakes, bogey-free holes. And that's what turns you into a major champion. Plus, just a couple of years ago, he loses in the playoff to Keegan Bradley. So he has that. He knows what it takes to be successful. And I think it's good for golf in that another first-time major winner has stepped up. And it's no accident. I mean, this guy was, if you were an astute follower of the game, he was definitely on your radar before the championship started.
What is it, 15 of the last 19 majors, first-time winners?
Yeah.
That's good for golf, you think?
Well, look, Tiger's still in the mix. Phil's the other one this year who was a repeat as a major champion. But at the same time, yeah, there's a lot of new blood in the last 22 majors since Tiger has won his last, like you were talking about, 15 first-timers, 3 of 4 this year. But think about who those 3 are. Duffner, made for an exciting finish. Adam Scott wins the Masters. We all know who Adam Scott is. And Justin Rose, who's a contemporary of Scott. So now you have this sort of right behind Tiger Woods age group of guys who are really getting their game together. And Rory McIlroy had a down year this year. He won a couple of majors prior to this year. I think it's good in that the drama of Tiger Woods still chasing 15 remains. And seeing him on this path it remains compelling. Whether or not it's good for the game, I think Tiger in the mix is good for the game.
Is it affecting him now more mentally, Tiger Woods?
I always hesitate to try to get into a guy's head, but I think that if you just watched him this week and you watched his body language and approach to things, Jack never had a number on the wall. He never said, well, 17, so I've got to win 18. Tiger's always had that 18, and that number is like a real number looming right now. And getting to 15 has definitely increased the pressure. I don't care who you are. You're not immune to pressure. And I think in watching him play this week, you could see that he was, he's grinding. I mean, he's really trying. And it may be affecting his game because I think that when your mindset changes a little bit, psychologically in golf, it can affect you, and I don't think he's impervious to that pressure.
We keep talking about the next Tiger, the next whomever. There's probably never going to be a next Tiger, but Jason Duffner, is he a guy that can win multiple majors?
Yeah, I think he can. I don't think he's the next Tiger.
No, probably not.
I mean,
I don't think he has
God
anything in
bless him.
common with Tiger Woods.
No.
Nothing.
But I think he could be a multiple major winner. And I think the nice part about this is that, we're introduced to a new personality, as much as he is, in golf. Like I said, I go back to some of the other guys who are starting. I think you have other guys out there that are knocking on the door. You got Jason Day, who's another fine Australian player. He's knocking on the door to possibly get it. Lee Westwood is still out there at age 40, who is still looking for his first major. So this list of first-time major possibilities is growing, and the gap between Tiger and Phil is shrinking with these other guys in the field. That's why when Tiger falls behind or Phil falls behind at a major, it's not like you're just going to post a number. There are other guys in front of you that are still playing good golf, so that's what makes it even more difficult.
And then there's Phil Mickelson. You never know what you're going to get from him.
I spoke with T.R. Ryman, who's kind of Phil's, publicist, and he said that it's been a pretty interesting stretch since the Scottish Open, then winning the British, and then the week after Bridgestone, and now to here. And I just don't think he had much left. He couldn't control his 3-wood. He couldn't shape it the way he wanted to, and I think there was definitely a fatigue factor in there, a little hangover from the Open Championship. I'm not making excuses for him. I'm just telling you that's what they say.
What about McIlroy and the clubs? The club deal, is it affecting him? He took a lot of money. I don't blame him.
Yeah, I just think that, in watching him, he's got to try to find that McIlroy joy he had again, and I think he got a little bit of it back. Look, equipment's one thing. I think these guys are so good that they can adjust to whatever they're dealing with. I think he's got to find whatever that joy is for him and learn to sort of accept his status in golf. He's not that far away, but when you're a young guy and all of a sudden you've achieved something like that, there's more of a burden on performance as far as you're concerned, and I think that's kind of part of it. And he's got his majors, but I was going to say, like Sergio, who never got that, I think the burden had it's beaten him down a little bit. He's just not a happy person.
Yeah, I think a lot of things have beaten down Sergio over the years. Sometimes, look, you're depressed. You are what you are. But I wanted to ask you about being there, covering a major. This isn't the first time you've done this. The things that you get to see.
The language of guys as they step out to the range, what their mood is like, if they're really, how they approach it. Get to talk to guys on the practice range. Are they loose? Are they not? How angry are they? I saw Gary Woodland come off the other day, and he was dropping some bombs as he went back to sign his scorecard. I think you get to see guys interact with managers and caddies plotting strategies, and I think you get to see guys who may have it on the range before they go out, and guys who are really hitting the ball crisply and where they want to hit it, and if they try to translate that once they step out onto the course. But everybody's different, and I think the thing about golf is it's such an individual sport. You're your own planet, and it took me a while to understand that you cannot let criticism or self-doubt creep into your mind. That's the one thing you can't have. So no matter what, you're still good and you're still worthy. So
that's what Dad used to tell us all the time. You're still good and you're still worthy.
No, I don't think that. I don't remember that actually.
I think he actually said that it was a glass of whiskey. Offensive interference going to continue.
The Governor's Mansion, the St. Regis Hotel, and now Oxygen Financial. We are all located on West Paces Ferry Road. Come spend an hour with one of our private CFOs and get a financial plan in place for your future. Go to oxygenfinancial.net to set up a meeting today.
Back here on offensive interference, what do you want, a koozie or something? I can't really pay you.
What do you have? I mean, what do you have for guests? What do you have? Like
what do you want?
I don't know, like a Wendy's gift certificate or something? Or?
You want to buy you a Frosty? Will that make you happy?
I don't know. I'd take anything at this point.
We'll take you to McDonald's. I'll get you a McFlurry. Anyway, Johnny Manziel getting a lot more than that to sign autographs. Did you read the article, the SI piece, the ESPN, the magazine piece as well? Apparently, based on what I read, and I think others are gathering this opinion as well, he's essentially a rich, spoiled brat. That's the way it sounds.
Well, part of that, coming out of that, at least, some of the interpretations were, he's just a 20-year-old guy and he's just he's a typical college guy. And my response to that was, no, you're not a typical college guy. You're the Heisman Trophy winner. You're the quarterback at Texas A&M. You represent your school, the Heisman people, and your family. And that's what he's missing out on at this point. You are held to a higher standard. I'm sorry, you're not like everybody else. You can't go out there and be hung over at the Manning passing quarterback camp. So you're asked to leave by the old man.
Well, he lied to Archie. He said he wasn't out, and he was out.
Well, Joe Tessitore asked him, did you have any alcohol while you were down? Well, I don't want to answer that at this point. I'm sorry, you're not like that. I'll give you an example. Your nephew Adam played college baseball. And, we saw him on someone's Facebook page in a precarious position, something that could have been interpreted one way or the other. And I told him, you can't be in a picture or do anything like that that's going to jeopardize what you do at your school.
Right.
Because you put that all at risk. I don't know where Manziel's dad is in all this.
Well, he's drinking with him. That's what he's doing.
Well, that's ridiculous that he's drinking with him and giving other guys nut shots.
Actually, I'm sorry. You know what happened? He stopped drinking to set an example for his son, but yet continued to let his son drink in front of him.
He needs to grab him by the collar and pin him up against the wall and say, look, straighten up. Because right now you're blowing it. You're blowing it big time. And I'm sorry. I don't believe in that. I think if you're a special athlete or you have a gift, that you have to nurture that and you have to take care of it. And I'm sorry. That doesn't mean you go to Texas and try to get into a party. Who's watching this guy? How does this happen?
Well, one of his friends from high school is his assistant.
Well,
whatever that means.
I know he's on this fast track and I know he's enjoying it. And he wants to be, I want to live my life and that whole thing. But I'm sorry, you have responsibilities. So, what did Spider-Man say? With great
power comes great responsibility.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And his uncle, whatever his name is.
Ben?
Yeah, Uncle Ben. Made great rice, which made
I think the
Spider-Man
kid
very
needs,
strong.
I think it starts with family, Nick.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's,
Well, let me ask
who
you
you're most
this.
honest with.
If, again, granted, they have a lot of money. I guess the great-grandfather was involved in oil
So
and,
it
all
allows
that,
you-
and all that implies.
So what?
No, here's the thing.
He was in the oil business?
Why would you?
I got
Because
a gusher.
he bought his son a Mercedes because his son wanted the Mercedes and he wanted to keep his son out of trouble. He figured his son may go through, an illegal, loan or what have you, go through illegal channels to get the Mercedes. How about you say,
Have
what?
you been to College Station?
You're 20 years old. You don't need a Mercedes.
I've been to College Station. You don't need a Mercedes
Exactly.
down at College Station. Believe me, you'll be okay getting around.
Yeah,
I don't understand that.
And then he gets mad that somebody keys it, and then they come to his house because he was parked illegally. He said, I told the cop I was going to come back the next day. Why'd they knock on my door? Well, because you were parked where
All
you
right.
shouldn't be parked.
Do you see a pattern here?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not trying to judge the guy because he's a really talented player. I think he's good for college football.
I'm blaming the parents more than I'm blaming him.
But yes, this is where parental influence has to step in. You've got to say, look, man, you be a dad, be a mom, and tell this kid, look, you're ruining this. And I used to tell the boys that your name is my name, and that's the most important thing. At the end of the day, is how you carry yourself. Especially this kid's a high profile guy. I mean, he is college football right now, and who was advising him to sign anything allegedly?
His parents. I mean, they had stuff in the garage for him to sign every day.
Why would you do that?
Again, that's why I go back to Mr. and Mrs. Manziel. Johnny F. in football was his nickname. They both thought about getting personalized license plates that said Johnny, or I don't know, however it would
Let me
read out the
fast
plate.
forward this story.
JF football.
Let me fast forward the story for you. Johnny leaves after his junior year.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to the NFL, and he's going to be Johnny F. thrown around the
Mm-hmm.
league because everybody's really Johnny F. good in the NFL. So he's in for a Johnny F. rude awakening once he gets to the league.
Johnny F. in concussion.
Johnny F. what happened? Yeah, Johnny F.
But I mean,
struggling.
for the parents to be doing that, to buy him a new car, to go out drinking with him, it was really, the ESPN, the magazine piece was even more disturbing. And someone's got to pull him aside. You're right, and say, you know what, you don't need to be tweeting. You don't need to tell someone, hey, why don't you try walking a mile in my shoes?
Well, the guy we mentioned,
like you're persecuted.
the guy we mentioned, why doesn't Manziel go to Archie Manning, the old man? This guy has set the greatest example in the history of fathering a quarterback in the league, or two, in that he was a big star too, and he could have showered these kids. Peyton Manning was a star. Eli Manning was a star in college. And for these guys to turn out the way they were, that's where their base is. Their base is in the home. And again, we're not there at the Manziel house. But my gosh, I mean, how does this kid is just freewheeling it right now?
Well, I don't understand why you would, the elder Manziel says, the father, well, the school doesn't care. I have to protect him because, the coach off of Johnny's coattails, essentially, I'm paraphrasing to a certain extent, got a huge raise and an extension. Well, you know what? Everything works in concert with everything else. If you continue to do what you're supposed to be doing, then everything's going to work out. I mean, I think that pattern has been set by the parents. He feels like he's entitled. He certainly doesn't need the money. He's going out there and signing autographs, and I got to believe his parents knew everything that was going on based on what I read.
Ultimately, Texas A&M offers him a forum to become a college football star. And I'm going to tell you something. You got to show it to me again this year. I mean, I know he had a great year and he made some spectacular plays, but we'll see if you can continue that as well. You can't blame the school. Ultimately, you have to make your own decisions. You have to walk away from a school party. You have to walk away from a situation that doesn't feel right. You can't go to Texas and try to get into a party.
Not in this day and age with cell phone
cannot
cameras.
do it.
You can't do any of that stuff because somebody's going to catch you. Somebody's
Right.
going to get it.
How do you think this turns out, Nick?
I think he's going to be suspended. I think he may have to sit out the year if this is true, because you're hearing more and more of these brokers and more about these autograph sessions. If he keeps going out there and signing, I mean, AJ Green got 4 games because he sold his bold game jersey to somebody for $100. I mean, then he's got to get the season. I
It
would
wasn't
think.
like I signed 4 items. This
No.
is 4,400 items.
You got to prove it. You got to prove the money changed hands, and I guess the NCAA is trying to look into his bank account and everything else. But this is potentially a disaster for Texas A&M, for Johnny Manziel. But again, to sit there and hang out in the ESPN, the magazine article, they're in some fancy steakhouse in Texas, and they're in a private room in the back, and there's an NFL player there. And Mr. Manziel tells Johnny, hey, such and such is here. He wants to meet you. And Johnny says, no, I don't want to meet him. And then the aunt mutters something under her breath, and he tells his aunt to shut the hell up. Now, this is all in front of an ESPN writer. So if he's doing this in front of an ESPN writer, what's he like when nobody's around?
Well, that's very telling if that actually happened, that he's allowed to behave that way, because that doesn't really fly in my house.
What if we were sitting at a steakhouse? Well, I mean, relatively speaking, let's just say we were sitting at the table and we told our father's sister, Auntie Irene, to shut up. What do you think would happen?
Probably get hit real hard in the face.
Yeah, maybe that's what Johnny needs.
Well,
Johnny needs an effing slap.
honestly, that's a respect thing, and that is how you're brought up. And I think that if you have that sense of entitlement, and I don't know that he does, I've never met him, but all of these signs point to that he just is, he's going to do what he wants to, and he doesn't care what anybody else thinks. I don't know, man. Don't see it ending well.
Well,
I really don't.
Hopefully it ends well for Aaron Murray. I was out in Athens earlier in the week, had a chance to catch up with the Georgia quarterback, find out what he had to say about how competitive this camp has been when offensive interference continues. Again, I'll get you something.
Was it a tease? What do you got?
It was a tease.
What do I get for promotional consideration?
I don't know. I'll get you some super sad. What do you want from me?
ALS doesn't just kill you, it shuts you down, little by little, bit by bit.
It starts small. Maybe it's holding a pencil that gets difficult.
Or getting up from your chair. Then you find it hard to turn the pages of your book.
Because you can't move your fingers.
Your mind keeps working, but your body doesn't respond.
You won't see it coming because no one knows where it comes from.
Soon you can't hug your mother or pick up your child.
You won't be able to tie your shoes.
You don't need to tie your shoes because now you can't walk.
You can't eat or shave.
Or laugh or sing.
First you can't catch the ball, then you can't catch your breath.
ALS doesn't just kill you.
It steals your life, a little bit at a time.
And it doesn't stop until there's nothing left.
Unless we stop it first. Unless we stop it now.
I'm Dave Gleason. Let's put our heads together and find a cure for ALS.
Back here on Offensive Interference, we were talking, my big brother and I, Vince Cellini, about one quarterback in the SEC who may have some problems in Johnny Manziel. There's another quarterback who decided to come back to the surprise of many, myself included. He's at Georgia by the name of Aaron Murray. Back-to-back SEC championship games, Georgia appeared in, coming up short in both of those contests against LSU and Alabama. Aaron Murray, again, I thought he was gone after coming up 5 yards short of, I'm going to call it a national title, because I don't think there's any way, shape, or form that Georgia loses that national championship game against Notre Dame. But Aaron Murray led the offseason workouts, stayed around town pretty much in Athens the entire offseason. We hear it a lot, 100% attendance in these offseason workouts. But from people that I've spoken with in Athens, and I was there earlier in the week, it really was 100% this year because Aaron Murray made sure everybody attended. A very deep offensive line, a very deep receiving core, a very deep running back position. We'll talk more about Keith Marshall in a few days. Roddy Nabolsi, blogger from ESPN, who's been around the Georgia program going back to the year 1993, will join us. Keith Marshall is huge, and I mean that in a good way, over 220 pounds. In fact, when I saw Keith Marshall, did not even recognize Keith Marshall. More importantly, Roddy Nabolsi, you'll hear him talk about it, he didn't recognize Keith Marshall either. But anyway, back to Aaron Murray. Working out in the offseason, the body fat down to 9%. It was at 14% last year. So Aaron Murray, not exactly a guy that's out of shape. And Aaron Murray, a guy that pretty much could own every SEC passing record by the time he is done this year. As I said, I was in Athens earlier this week, had a chance to talk a little bit to Aaron Murray, and I asked him about the special teams performance that he had the chance to witness.
Today's proceedings.
Aaron Murray.
Footwork about 20 minutes. Sit there and act like an idiot. So.
Do you watch a lot? I mean, is that what you do in a special teams room? Do you sit there and watch a lot?
I mean, like I said, we did footwork for about 20, 25 minutes. Coach Bo pushed some drills, and then it's just pretty much sit there and, like I said, don't be a distraction or get Coach Rick upset. So just sit there and watch the rest of the scrimmage.
So now you kind of know what it feels like to be a kicker in practice.
Just chilling, hanging out. I think they get to go in the locker room and play video games and stuff during our practice, but yeah, just hanging out was nice.
Just talked to Coach about the competition in this camp. Do you sense it being more fierce than it has been maybe in seasons past since you've been here?
Oh, definitely, everywhere. At the receiving position, just speaking to offense, receiving position, offensive line, running backs. I mean, everyone's pushing themselves, and obviously the defense is getting after it just because we have so many spots open right now. I think some guys have really, separated themselves a little bit, but it's still another 20 days to go to that first game, so there's still a lot more to be gained on and off the field to get guys ready to go and see who's going to be starting come game one.
No stranger to big games to open the season. I would imagine that helps you prepare for what you're going to see in Clemson.
Oh yeah, it definitely gets us pumped up. I mean, if there's any time during the practice or week, especially during camp, I mean, it gets long, tough, it's hot out there. One little thing that gets everyone pumped up is just, the thought of, Clemson that first game. We can't take a day off of practice. You can't show up to practice and feel sorry for yourself or tired because they're over there grinding too, and they're going to be ready to go, and we got to be even more prepared than they are.
Let me ask you, you've had a chance to spend all summer with Malcolm this spring and now into a half of a camp of him just concentrating on receiving. Are there some tangible differences that you can see from him having that concentration?
Just our timing, I think, is the biggest thing. Him and I are on the same page right now. We know he knows what I'm looking for. I know when he's going to break, just based on continuing to watch how he runs routes and, when he's able to shift his weight, when we know he's going to come out of a break and things like that. So we're on, like I said, we're on the same page, and I think that's the biggest thing right now.
Aaron, how did you kind of review Wednesday's scrimmage and how you did and how the offense did?
I thought we did great. I mean, we racked up over 500 yards of offense. Obviously need to cut down the turnovers, but I wasn't stressed at all about the turnovers. I mean, those are things that were just a little bit miscommunication that, we glad they happened now than later. So it's something we went back and talked about and got fixed, which is great. So other than that, I thought it went extremely smooth as an offense, running the ball and throwing the ball.
So there is Aaron Murray talking about the competition, and that seems to be a key word in Athens this year, competition. Even though you've got a lot of established players, a lot of them are competing to be actual starters on the offensive line. Everybody is back, but you've got guys battling like Colton Houston, who finally got the green light to participate. He is coming back, and he could be the starting right tackle, unseating John Theus, who played every game last year as a true freshman at that position. We know about Todd Gurley. We know how big and physical he is. But like I said, Keith Marshall ran for over 700 yards last year, too. Keith Marshall also got lost in the mix in a couple of games against teams like Florida, against teams like Alabama because the mindset was what the offensive coordinator, Mike Bobo, in fact did say was they needed a bigger back, and Todd Gurley was that bigger bell cow back. Well, now Keith Marshall did something about it. It's very interesting. Malcolm Mitchell mentioned something. When you are so good, especially when you play at a smaller school, and you dominate, and then you come to a school like Georgia and you don't dominate, people back home start asking you questions. What's going on? Why are you not the same player? Sometimes it's tough for kids to deal with the outside pressures. Look at Johnny Manziel, who we talked about earlier. Even though he dominated on the field, he had a ton of issues off the field. But Keith Marshall did something about it. Keith Marshall got bigger. Keith Marshall got stronger. Now we'll see if Keith Marshall lost any of that speed that he was known for last year. But again, he is a guy that wants to be in there every day. And yes, there's a competition between Todd Gurley and Keith Marshall, but it's a very, very friendly competition. These two push each other. And at wide receiver, you've got guys like Michael Bennett coming back, Chris Conley coming back, and really for only the second time, even though he's a third-year player, Malcolm Mitchell is in camp as a wide receiver. Don't forget last year with all of the injuries and suspensions in the defensive backfield, what they had to deal with. They had to play Malcolm Mitchell at corner, did not become, in fact, a full-time receiver until later on in the season. So he is still trying to develop. He says it's great, the chemistry that he has with Aaron Murray, but you're going to hear later on in the week the conversation that I had with a couple of wide receivers who have better chemistry with Aaron Murray. It was there with them, not necessarily there with Malcolm Mitchell, even though seemingly he's got the most talent at the wide receiver position. So that's for later on in the week. Hey, don't forget, Roddy Nabolsi is going to be joining us. I have an extended conversation with him. And trust me when I tell you, if there's anybody really closer right now to the Georgia program than Roddy Nabolsi, I want to know who that person is. Roddy is a great guy to know. He's a great guy in the know, and that's why he covers Georgia day in, day out for ESPN. Roddy Nabolsi, in fact, coming up later on in the week, will tell you what he thinks the Achilles heel could very well be for this Georgia team this upcoming season. He's also going to tell you of the first two games of the season. He thinks they're going to lose one of them. At Clemson, South Carolina at home. Which one of those games does Roddy feel they are going to drop? He thinks Georgia, after two games, will indeed be 1-1. So we'll talk about all of that and more with Roddy later on in the week. In the meantime, I want to thank you for listening as always. And hey, do me a favor. Tell a friend. Don't be bashful. You can check us out on Twitter at OI with, not actually the word with, at OIW/Nick Cellini. Offensive Interference with Nick Cellini. You can follow me on Twitter as well at Nick Cellini. Follow my big brother who joined us earlier at Vince Cellini as well. So remember, Offensive Interference, we're here a couple of times a week. We'll expand a little bit once the football season rolls around, and who knows, maybe we'll get a little crazy with more video like we did with Mick Foley a couple of podcasts ago. Want to thank everybody for listening. Want to thank everybody for helping us out. We'll talk to you soon.